What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Austin Hall Audio and Visual and Make Pop Music, and I'm back to bring you another tutorial per your request. So I know you all liked the vocal mixing video that we did with Emiya a couple weeks ago where I mixed the female pop vocal, and a lot of you wanted to see how I mix a male pop vocal. So we're going to hop into that today, and we're actually going to be using Kodamilo's brand new song, Say It, which comes out March 9th. So if you're watching this video on the day this video drops, that's tomorrow. If you're watching anytime after that, the song is out, so definitely go check it out and support. He's an amazing guy, amazing music, super talented and fun to work with, so definitely go show him some love. But before we actually hop in, I do want to kind of give a little bit of a rundown on what the style is. So this is more of like an R&B driven pop, kind of similar to like a Khalid or a Black or even like a Black Bear, or maybe even like a Party Next Door Drake kind of thing, where he's singing, but it's not super you know, like traditional singing. It's more smooth, it's more laid back, it's more almost like spoken on pitch. So he's got an insane voice, everything sounds super cool, and the mix doesn't need too much. So you'll see as we go through it, we'll probably get the job done with some very light tuning, some EQ, compression, and spatial processing. So don't be afraid to do only what the track needs. Don't ever go in and do a million things if you need to. But let's go ahead and hop in. But before we do, I do just want to say that if you want more info on vocal engineering and vocal mixing, we actually have a full series on our website, just makepopmusic.com, where we actually talk about how to set up a mic, how to record people with proximity, how to comp a vocal, how to tune a vocal, how to compress it, EQ it, throw on spatial processing, and we basically walk through how to record a vocal from start to finish. And then that is everything that you should need to know to actually get started. So these videos are more just about mixing. If you want to know the actual steps to like recording and getting a good vocal to mix, I definitely recommend that series. Again, it's just on our website. But let's just go ahead and hop into this and let's see what we did for Kodamilo's mix. Okay, now we're ready to hop into the session. So let's go ahead and just take a quick listen to what he's got here. So this is a mix. It's a super simple song. There's not a ton going on at all. It's literally like not even 30 tracks because we've got some that are muted up here. So let's go ahead and just take a listen.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright when you're here by my side. You wanna go for a ride tonight? Say what's on your mind, baby. Tell me what you're thinking. I'ma fill your cup, baby.
Cool. So you get it. Let's go ahead and actually hop into this. The first thing that we want to take a look at is the pre-chorus vox. So we'll go ahead and mute them and turn everything off. So I did recently upgrade to Auto-Tune Pro instead of Auto-Tune 8, and I actually really am liking it. Kodamilo stuff doesn't need a lot because he normally tunes stuff as it comes in. So I just, you know, have it to the key E flat minor, and then basically just let it do its thing. I didn't really do anything on this particular, but the graph mode on this is super killer, so I'll probably start using this instead of separating it into Very Audio and Auto-Tune. I might just start only doing it in Auto-Tune Pro. So if you haven't upgraded, definitely upgrade. I think it's super worth it. It's really cool looking, and the GUI is just so much better looking to me than the last ones. But let's go into the actual mixing process. So of course we've got our bad boy VMR, right? So the first thing that we do is the Neve style EQ, very similar to what we did on Emiya's actual song. So let's take a listen to what we're doing.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright.
So we're taking a lot of that blanket off. He has a lot of low end buildup in his voice because he has a bassier voice. He's just singing this song higher in his register. So what we did was we cut out that 150 by like 3 dB, and we actually low pass like 80 just to get rid of any like weird room modes or, you know, humming AC or anything like that. Low pass at 80 and then cut out like 3 dB at like 150. And then we didn't do anything with this midband or with this midband. And then I actually boosted the high shelf by 1.4 dB. And the reason I'm doing that is just to add that nice like brightness and airiness that he's got in his vocals.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright.
Then we've got just our classic compression with the attack all the way up. So a really fast attack on an 1176 and a release that's just mimicking that almost. I could almost dial this back even a little bit. 4:1 ratio, and then you'll see we're probably going to get like 5 to 10 dB.
Right when you're here by my side.
And then we've got what is probably my newest thing that I've been throwing on vocals is the air EQ. And that's just to add a last little bit of brightness, because listen, without.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright.
It just adds that like really nice pop sheen to a vocal that you'll hear in a lot of like, especially female vocals or like hip hop R&B vocals where they've got that bright airiness that's like kind of breathy, but it's not super harsh and sibilant. So I'll use that for that. So now we're in good shape. We've got him in tune and we've got the basic EQ and compression and then that little high-end boost.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright.
Next thing to do is DS it. And for the DS, you honestly can just pick a preset on FabFilter. You just want to make sure that it's not doing too much, because if it's doing too much, you'll start to get some weird like lispy sounds.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright when you're here by my side.
So I really only like it to be between like 3.5 and 5 dB max. And what that allows me to do is get the high end on the vocal really nice and bright. That way we can actually get that nice bright pop vocal and then just tame some of those sibilant sounds. So that's handling that. And then we've got Pro Q. This is going to make a little bit of a difference. This is just taking off more of that bottom end blanket. And we'll throw it in the mix in a second just so you can hear it as we kind of mute everything and come in one at a time. But we've got a low pass here, just getting rid of any more low rumble that was caused by the compression that we added.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright when you're here by my side.
So we're just getting rid of a little more of that low end. And the reason that I do that on his vocals in particular is because when we add like the parallel widening and some of the reverbs and stuff like that, they'll add a little bit of, you know, low content, and I don't want it to get too muddy. So the last thing we do is just compress them one last time with a 2A.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that.
And this is really where we're pushing it. So we're getting like, you know, 10 to 15 dB of gain reduction. And that to me is giving me that really consistent vocal, because it's a really dynamic vocal take and it's kind of a dynamic song, but I need them to just sit in the right place. So
I'm switching time zones, but I know that
So let's actually take a listen in the mix with and without everything.
I'll be alright when you're here by my side. You wanna go for a ride.
So as you can see, the main thing we're doing is taming the lows in his voice, and we're just compressing them and squeezing them a lot. So let's go on to the vocal widening. This is the same as the EMEA track that we did. It is just Roland Dimension D on setting 3 on Ascend, and then I just blend that in.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright.
Then we've got a long reverb. I believe we just did the vocal plate reverb on this. Yep, at 1.26, 100% wet. And then we have the pre-delay to allow a little bit of that vocal to come through before the compressor kicks in. And then we're filtering out anything below 200 and anything above 6K. So let's go ahead and take a listen now.
When you're here by my side. I'm switching time zones, but I know that.
So I'm not doing a lot of reverb at all because I actually prefer his voice pretty dry. So I'm only going to do a little bit. Then we've got the short reverb right here. And that short reverb is just the small room setting on the BM7, 700 milliseconds. And then pre-delay up a little bit.
That I'll be alright.
And what this is doing, this is adding some width.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright.
So we've got vocal parallel to add width, reverb vox long to add a little bit of length, and then vocal vox short to add a little bit more width. Then we've got a slap delay, which is going to add just a little bit more width.
Right when you're here.
So this is just H delay with the left phase canceled out. And then we've got a 74 millisecond delay, 100% wet. And then what that does is that just spreads everything out just a little bit more.
Here by my side.
And the reason that I use those three all together is so I don't have too much of a chorusy sound or too much of a room sound or too much slapback delay to where it sounds like, you know, like a retro sound. So I like to just stack them all very subtly underneath so we get all of those width elements without having that tonal quality come through too much. Then we've just got a stereo vox delay, which is, you know, nothing super special, just H delay on, I'm sorry, that was the slap delay. Let's open this one up. It's just H delay on 1/4 ping pong, 100% wet. We filtered it out with the low pass and the high pass just a bit. And then we filtered it out even more with Pro Q. And then we actually sent our delay to a reverb. I'll do this because I don't want a dry delay. Dry delay is just kind of to me. It doesn't really sit in the mix, and this is a good way to add space without using a ton of reverb for it to sound corny or cheesy. So most of the time, I don't push my reverb super hard. I'll push my delays a bit harder, and my delays have a lot of reverb on them. So you're getting a lot of that space. So now let's go ahead and take a listen in the mix.
I'm switching time zones, but I know that I'll be alright when you're here by my side. You wanna go for a ride.
So as you can see, we're just adding a little bit of space and depth to that with all of these synths, and then we're really just tightening up the vocal with the mixing. So we're not doing anything crazy, we're not reinventing the wheel, but that's pretty much all we're doing for that pre-chorus vocal. And then let's go ahead and take a look at these backup vocs. So he did some processing on them.
Right.
He already had them like panned out and actually calmed down to one stereo track. So I just threw auto-tune on auto mode, same exact thing as the last time. Now we've got doubler, and I did the double 4 voices, which is basically, as you can see, delaying all of these different sides just by a little bit, panning them out, and then you're doing some detuning right here. So it's gonna sound a little something like this.
Right.
It's just adding that like nice little chorusy effect. Then we've got virtual mix rack, which is just doing the exact same thing, just so this sits in with the main vocal. De-esser is the same thing. EQ is the same thing, and the 2A is the same exact thing. So this is all just duplicated from the main vocal, and then I added doubler second in the chain. And then we've got a reverb right here, which we're using the St. Sylvian 2-second reverb from BM7. I love this hall. It's super lush, and it's got this nice like round character to it. And then we've got some delay, just to kind of carry that. So let's hear now with all of that.
Time zones, but I know that I'll be alright. You're here by me.
So a lot of the time that's how I'll process my ad-libs or my backgrounds. I'll spread them with something like a doubler and then add quite a bit of reverb and delay to really get that roomy sound, just to get them out of the way of the main vocal and to create some ambience on the actual tail ends. So let's go to the chorus vocal. We'll mute everything and we'll listen.
What's on your mind, baby? Tell me what you're thinking. I'ma fill your cup.
Auto-tune, doing the same exact thing, just auto mode set to the key, because he doesn't need much at all. And then virtual mix rack, we're actually doing the exact same thing as the verses. The only difference is we have some EQ differences right here. So I boosted a little bit more, just because the tone that he's singing in for the chorus and he's singing a little bit lower had a lot more low end buildup. And so I just scooped a little bit more of that out. And then what I did is I actually drove the reverb and the delay just a little bit harder, I believe. Yep, just a little bit. So you can see.
Baby, tell me what you say. What's on your mind, baby? Tell me what you're thinking. I'ma fill your cup, baby. Tell me what you're drinking.
And I actually left it pretty dry still, because what I like to do is, instead of driving the vocal up and being super wet and reverby and having all of this room, I'll actually just duplicate the vocal to a stereo track. So you see we're on a stereo insert. I'll double it, and then I'll add a really, really fat reverb at 100% wet. So this is basically the same chain as we have for the backup Vox little ad-lib that we did a little bit earlier, but now the reverb is 100% wet. So now listen to this in the background. And then we add that in with the main verse, or with the main voc.
I'ma fill your cup, baby, tell me what you're drinking. We could leave this place, we could dip out for the weekend.
And that adds that space in the background, but it gives me a lot of control to control how loud it is, how much I have. Using that doubler on it to get it out of the way is a really cool tool, so it doesn't get in the way of your main vocal in the middle. And then we have these harmonies and these ad-libs that kind of really add to the ambience on the tails. So I didn't want to make it super wet because he's got these. I'll turn it off to where it has nothing on him.
Say what's on your mind, baby, tell me what you're thinking. I'ma fill your cup, baby, tell me what you're drinking.
And he actually comped them down with like auto pan on them. So again, auto tune, virtual mix rack is doing the exact same thing. High shelf boost, low cut, compressing it quite a bit, adding some air. De-esser is just de-essing, not doing more than 3 dB on these. EQ, so this EQ is actually drastically different on this.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Because I really wanted that like mid-heavy telephonic effect Then I drove that into the two-way really hard.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Actually, not that hard. Only like 3 dB it looks like, so strike that. It's not that hard at all. It's only like 3 dB just to kind of tame it. Then I've got a really, really long reverb, St. Sylvian again. I kept all the reverbs pretty consistent. That way the vocals aren't in a million different spaces. Just because if, you know, I use this hall on one and then another hall on another and then another on another, things might start to sound a little wonky because things are like decaying at weird times and ending at weird times. So I just found one that I liked and then just kind of blended that in with the dry and the wet knob. And then I've got some reverb and delay.
Tell me what you're thinking.
1/4 ping pong, and since it's actually got auto pan on it, the ping pong delay kind of does this weird thing where it's like keeping up with the actual panning in the track. So you're getting this really wide stereo scope because you've got the original track panning, then you've got a wide reverb, then you've got this delay kind of going back and forth. So it's pretty wild sounding and it sounds super sick in the mix. Check this out.
Say what's on your mind, baby, tell me what you're thinking. I'ma fill your cup, baby, tell me what you're drinking. We could leave this place.
So that's what we're doing for that. Then we've got his ad-libs right here. Those are actually just the exact same thing as this backup Vox right here, so I just duplicated that and stuck it on this. I believe, let me just double check, same exact thing. So you don't have to do too much on that. Again, just same as this one, just some doubler, EQ, compression, reverb, and delay. Then we've got these backup Vox. So this is actually the same as the first backup Vox we did. And so let's hear it in the mix.
Yeah, I need you to say it, I need you to say it loud.
So adding that telephonic, really reverby, slappy delay kind of sound on the back of this, which is kind of like the second part of the chorus, like chorus B, to me, that added this really cool depth and dimension where this part that was before here is kind of spacey and has these like call and response, you know, backup vocals and ad-libs. And then we've just got that like really wide kind of mid-heavy vocal under it to just create it.
Yeah, I need you to say it, I need you to say it loud. I need you to say it, let the words.
And you can see how much that actually creates that vibe in that section. Without that, the vocals sound really dry and boring. And so he actually recorded these separate, so I didn't have to duplicate them. But if you need to, you always could just duplicate the main vocal, throw something like mono to stereo, doubler, micro shift, whatever, even like a Roland Dimension D. You just want it 100% wet so it doesn't phase out with the original, and then you can just kind of process it a little bit differently. We've done it in videos before where we'll do like wide vocal saturation, or we'll do like wide reverb vocals or ad-libs and delays and stuff like that. So that's what I'll do for those, just to get them out of the way but give it some sauce. Then we've got these harmonies. So he's actually gone ahead and printed them pretty wide. It sounds like he's using something like doubler or microshift on them. And then we've just got auto-tune. I added my own doubler just to kind of blend it in with that 4 voices preset that I'm using a lot. Then virtual mix rack is again doing the same exact thing. You'll see I keep the main chain consistent with the EQ, the compression, and all of that stuff, just to make sure that everything's in the same space. And then what I'll do is I'll use something like doubler or something like verb suite or H delay at different kind of wetnesses to actually create that separation. So I like to keep it in the same space and then separate it with just different amounts of the effects that I'm using. Because if I'm using a different compressor and a different EQ and everything's a little bit different, sometimes that works if you want that separation, like if you're doing something where the harmonies need to poke out, or if everything needs to kind of get out of the way of the main vocal. But for this, I just needed it to sound really consistent, really vibey. It really needed to just all be in that same like sonic area where it's just such a chill vibe. So I kept most of the stuff the same throughout all of these tracks, and then just kind of, you know, sprinkled in the wetness to taste. So here's what it is.
The words roll out your mouth. Yeah, I need you to say it, I need you to say it loud. I need you to say it, let the words roll out your mouth.
And then he's got that, and then we've got these say the words.
Words and we'll go, say the words and we'll go.
These are actually just copy and pasted from the chorus. I didn't change literally anything at all. I just had them right here because he had them broken up in stems. So instead of copying and pasting them to another track, I had plenty of CPU, plus we get a little bit of overlap here, and sometimes it's tricky to make sure everything crossfades without being weird, so I just left those on their own track. This is an actual duplicate of this, and then Verbi Vox 2 is just a duplicate of Verbi Vox. And then the last thing we have is his verse vocal.
Nation, we could take a flight, yeah. We can go wherever, whenever you like. Oh, we could be in Paris overnight. Just tell me what's the deal like.
So that is actually the same as the pre-chorus vocals up here. I just have them turned up a little bit because it's a bit quieter of a section. I could probably even boost this to drive the compressor a little harder. But, you know, you live and you learn. So let's see.
We could take a flight, yeah. We can go wherever, whenever you like.
So same exact chain, same exact sends. As you can see, nothing super crazy. Most of the stuff in this track is the same stuff happening everywhere. It's just really the doubler, the delay, and the reverb that create that separation, and then using the sends and blending sends into taste. So let's just kind of look at levels. The pre-chorus is like 2 dB up, and then we've got the backup vocals a lot quieter, like -5. Then we've got the chorus vocals, which are actually a dB above these pre-chorus vocals just to create that sense of like when the chorus hits. And then we've got these Verbi Vox, which actually probably adds a couple more dB onto them. So we're getting a pretty good separation between.
You wanna go for a ride tonight? Say what's on your mind, baby, tell me what you're thinking.
Then we've just got these backup vocals and ad-libs where the levels really just need to sit in the mix. They don't really add too much to like the overall loudness of the track.
I'ma fill your cup, baby, tell me what you're drinking. We could leave this place, we could dip out for the weekend.
Then the actual chorus backups and the harmonies come in a bit quieter, but they're really just to create that space and that width.
Yeah, I need you to say it, I need you to say it now.
And then the chorus vocals and the Verbi Vox 2 are, I believe, yeah, the exact same. Let me see actually. Chorus vocals, pretty much. And then Verbi Vox 2, this is actually quite a bit different than the normal Verbi Vox. We've got it like 4 dB up, so we're actually driving the reverb a little bit harder in this post hook.
Say the words and we'll go. Say the words and we'll go. Say the words and we'll go.
And then that's pretty much it. As you can see, this song doesn't have a million vocal layers. We just paid a lot of attention to the details and kind of where we put everything. So it's really just like one main vocal going throughout. Then he's got like spread out ad-libs and then like one spread out harmony. And that's probably it. And you can see like it doesn't take all the time, like a million different vocal layers. Like not every song has to be vocally produced like an Ariana Grande song or a Taylor Swift song. And not every song is gonna sound good like this. So pay a lot of attention to your actual vocal arrangement. We'll have more videos about vocal arrangement coming up, but it really just is like, if you want that wide, super spread out, stacked vocal, record a lot of vocals and spread them out and make them wide and, you know, use your panning, use your tools. If you want that really consistent, you know, R&B hip hop vocal where it's kind of dry, it's really up the middle and everything is just kind of like focused around one vocal being a really good take, something like this might be a little bit better shot, but that's pretty much it for the session. So as you can see, Kodamilo is really fun to mix and it doesn't take too much to get him to sound pretty awesome in his mixes. So I'm glad I got to kind of go over the bare minimum that you can do to a vocal to actually get it to where it needs to be. You don't have to throw in a million different things just because you've read articles online saying that you need to do it. Sometimes they come in handy, they are tools that you can use, but a lot of the time you can get the job done with some basic compression, EQ, reverb, delay, and then maybe even some like saturation or, you know, modulation effects or something like that. But I hope you liked this video. Make sure that you go support Kodamilo song, go check it out, and make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe our video. Come over to our website, check us out, makepopmusic.com, and join the Facebook group. We are running that top line competition, so if you want more details, just pop in the group. You'll see it. It's the first post. But that's going to do it for now. We will see you guys next week with more videos. Peace out, make pop music. Much love.
Say what's on your mind, baby, tell me what you're thinking.